But once you make that final decision, this is the industry, this is the company, these are products I will succeed with, then you have to have something at stake. Somebody read that for me, would you please? Mary, would you read that?
Have something at stake. Our frozen fish processor had trouble selling a few, I can't read, I don't know my glasses. A new line of frozen fish because they tasted flat. The company tried to get the fish fresh, including holding them in tanks until just before processing, but to no avail. Then someone suggested put a predator in there with them that should keep them fresh. This idea worked like a charm. The fish kept moving and retained their vitality. What do you have at stake?
So the question is, what do you have at stake? You are our predators. Last year, 60% of our business came from new agents. So what's another way of saying that? How would you reframe that from a business standpoint? Linda, how would you reframe that?
They're hungrier. They got more at stake.
Well, if we hadn't hired new agents, then what would have happened? Yeah, we'd be down 60%, right? If 60% of our sales came, this is called Give Me Five. Okay. If 60% of our sales came from new agents and we didn't hire new agents, then what would happen? We'd be down 60%, right? So really, you have to have something at stake. And I think, I don't know if it's true for everybody. It's probably not true for everybody, but I think more often than not, it's not the $250 that you have at stake, is it? Is that what you really have at stake in this business? What do you really have at stake? Don't we have our ego, our self-esteem, our pride? What prevents us from making that phone call, asking for the appointment, walking in that small business, asking for the check, getting the signature?
Fear.
Yeah, the fear. Did you? And there's a theory in psychology. It's called the fear of loss is greater than a desire for gain. The fear of losing something is greater than the desire for the gain we get from it. I was talking to a manager last week. He was having trouble getting agents doing package selling. In other words, you sell a med stuff with a care assist. And he said he couldn't understand why they wouldn't pick up the concept. They see him do it all the time. They see 85% of his sales are package sales. They see him increase his income 25% with no additional prospecting. We're going to talk about how to do it, but he can't get them to do it. I said, well, the fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. The fear of losing the sale is greater than the desire for the extra money they would make. And in this business, the fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. The fear of what we think people will think about what we're doing is greater than the desire for the money we would make from it. I mean, let's look at the whole process of sales. What's ironic, here's something that's ironic to me. Sales companies always put up different like contests and awards and stuff, right? Here, I found this funny in one of my offices one time. I had a couple of agents that hadn't written business in like 3 weeks. So I put up a contest that said you got $100 for this one type of app, the first one that came in by Wednesday at 4 o'clock. And one of the agents that hadn't written business went out and wrote that first app and came in to get the $100. That makes sense, right? You put on a contest, somebody does something to win it. Here's what I think is funny about it. Do you get paid when you write business? So the concept of earning a commission to pay the house payment, car payment, utilities, put braces on the kid wasn't motivation enough to go write business. But getting $100 for this app was enough money to get him off his butt to go write business. Isn't that funny? So what do we have to have at stake? I think more often than not, what we really have at stake is our own ego, our own sense of self-worth, our own sense of accomplishment. And in order to have something at stake, we have to put something out there. We have to risk something. And I think those are the things that we have to risk first. And that doesn't really have anything to do with the sale of the product. That has to do with us being willing to risk failure. Because it's only from the ashes of failure that we get the glory of success. And in this business, activity, numbers is the game. The more people we see, the more presentations we see, the better chance we have of making what?
Money.
Making money, of making a sale. And that's the hard thing to learn when you're brand new, because we tend to do a bad job of focusing on the product and sale and not on the front end, which is gaining the commitment and putting the activity in. And having enough faith and belief in ourselves and in our manager. After all, you paid $250 for a job based on what your manager, what did your manager do?
Sold you.
Sold you, and what he said, right? All of you came here to this training because your manager told you would get what out of it?
More sales. Training.
Yeah, did they say you'd get training, you'd get more sales, you'd get some help? And you came here on the faith and belief that you'd get something of value out of it. Not because you knew you would. Did any of you know whether this would be any good or not?
No.
I mean, some of you right now are probably sitting there thinking, this guy's an idiot. It's okay. But The truth is you have to have something at stake, and you have to put it up. The only person who likes change is a wet baby. Linda, would you read the rest of that for me?
Two basic rules of life are, 1, change is inevitable, and 2, everybody resists change. Much of the world has its defenses up to keep out new ideas. Thus, you need to become a warrior and do what's necessary to succeed. Sometimes this means fighting your way past the obstacles you encounter.
And I think the obstacles, more often than not, is the mirror. I mean, I think that people tend to think about themselves and not other people. If you are licensed, if you pass your state's licensing test, you know more than 95% of the people you're going to talk to. I'll give you a scenario. You go to a doctor and you describe some symptoms. And that doctor says, oh, okay, Mary, you can take this medicine, or you can take this medicine, or you can take this medicine, or you can take this medicine. Which medicine do you want? You go to the second doctor and you describe your symptoms, and he says, oh, okay, here, fill this prescription, take it twice a day, and come back in 10 days. Which doctor gives you more confidence?
The second.
Thanks, Mary. Which doctor gives you more confidence?
I suppose the second one does.
The second one? Why wouldn't the first one?
He obviously hasn't got a clue
Thanks,
what
Mary.
he's doing.
Appreciate that.
Well, you didn't say Mary again.
He's the professional, he should know what.
Ah, he's the what?
He's the professional.
Ah, give it up. Ah, he's the professional. So sometimes I think the obstacle we have to overcome is in the mirror. Do you see yourself as a highly trained licensed professional? I see managers do this all the time. They shoot new agents in the foot and don't even realize it. They'll walk into a small business. You got a new agent with them. I got Christy with me. I walk into a small business. Hi, Dave. My name is Lloyd Lofton, American Public Insurance Company. This is Christy. She's new with our company. I say she might as well wear a sign that says, I'm stupid, don't know anything, don't bother asking me questions, right? Because if he can't see me right now but has an interest and wants me to come back tonight and I have an appointment and Christy has to go by herself, how much confidence does he have in her now?
Zero.
Didn't I just shoot her in the foot? Did you know that your prospects only know what you tell them they know? Did you know that? So if you tell them that you're new, what do they know?
They know you're new.
Right. If you tell them you don't know, then what do they know?
They think you're an idiot.
Ah, see how that works? The good part about the 21st century is there's an invention called the cell phone. So I train all my agents to learn how to ask questions. And if the prospect comes back and says, what about, does this cover? And I don't know the answer. I do a trial close. I drop a thermometer in the sales situation. I say, that's a good question. We have an expert back at our office that handles that. Let me get David on the phone. And I go dial the number. If they don't stop me from dialing the number, what am I most likely doing?
Closing.
So when does the close occur?
From the beginning.
Very first contact. See how that works? So really, the truth is, the obstacle that we have to overcome is ourself, our own perceptions. That means we have to have something at risk, remember? You have to do something new, different. You have to go outside yourself. I think all of you bring skills and assets to the table. But the truth in business, and in life, in my experience anyway, if you make the same choices in the next year you made in the last year, where will you be a year from now?
You can't get through there.
.com.
I knew that was going to happen.
I like that clip because it demonstrates this philosophy, I think. What happens a lot of times is we get a new job like this, and we expect from a manager, or we come to a training like this, and what do we come to the training expecting?
Become experts.
Become an expert, yeah. We come in here expecting to learn techniques, right? And haven't you done that in prior jobs before? Like, you get a guy that's really good on the phone, and it's like, boy, if I could just get his phone script, right? Can you give me the wording on how you get that appointment? How do you do that present? How do you get the qualification? How do you close? Have you ever done that? You can just figure out how he closed. What's the words he used to close? We think there's like some magical trick to doing the sale. And there's not. There's no tricks. Dale Carnegie wrote a book in 1934. It's called How to Win Friends and Influence People. And really nothing's changed since then. I don't think there's anything new in sales training. It's just presented a different way. The truth is that technique alone is not enough. Technique alone is not going to help you succeed in your business. Well, we're going to teach you a lot of techniques. We're going to talk a lot of philosophy and processes and techniques. We're going to talk about a lot of those things. We've already talked about a few already. I don't know if you made any notes on it. But the truth is, application of a new technique in a practice or pressure situation is required to turn the technique into a skill and then improve on it. I mean, agents come here all the time and they say, well, they've been here 3 weeks. Have you made a presentation? Well, no. Learning the product. I'm going to learn all the features and benefits. What if the customer asks me? I mean, what if they want to know? And the truth is, the only way you're going to know is to go make the presentation. The only way, I can teach you all kind of rebuttals here. We're going to teach you key phrases. What's the hardest part about making a point? What's the hardest part about a customer objection? Overcoming the objection. It isn't that you can't talk, right? I mean, you're all people persons, right? That's why you took this job. That's why you got in sales. You like working with people. It's not that you have difficulty talking. Isn't it that first 2 to 5 seconds after they object, thinking of what to say? Isn't that what happens on the telephone? I mean, yeah, here's what I think is funny. I'll work with agents that's been in sales for years, or they've been with us for years, and they make the phone call. Now, here's a guy that's been with us for 10 years. They make the phone call. They get an objection on the phone, and you watch them kind of stutter. Have you ever seen someone do that? Now, don't you think that someone's been in sales more than a year has heard, I want to think about it more than 1,000 times? Wouldn't you think they'd already have a rebuttal built in? But the truth is, we think there's some technique. You know, how do I get in the door? What's the technique I can use? With Combined Insurance, we used to teach you, we had a key phrase we used. Hi, my name is Lloyd Lofton. I'm with Combined Insurance Company. I was out visiting my customers in the area, and I want to stop by and visit with you. I believe this will interest you also. And you go through. I was just seeing Frank next door and Billy next door, and you go through the names and the roles there. You can't do that today because of HIPAA, but we go through the names and the role. And I believe this will interest you also. You wipe your feet. We teach them all the techniques. So agents think that technique's going to get them in the door. But what really works for them? If you want to make a presentation, you have to get in front of somebody. That's the key. Techniques that we're going to learn in class today aren't going to get you there. You have to go use the techniques. Remember we talked about active versus passive? You have to find out one thing that will work for you and then go do it. Go do it with the end in mind. And what's the end that you're looking for?
Commission check.
Commission, for someone to sign an application and give you a check. If you have the ability to look past the first 75 no's you're going to get and focus on the first yes you get, then you'll have a better chance of doing what, Linda? That's succeeding, right. So really what we're talking about is you as a business owner. And we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we're going to start that process of putting together a little business plan for yourself. I've got 5 after 10. Let's say 10:15. Does that work for everybody? This means yes. Take your break.
Why do I think that conversation actually took?
That was actually probably a true conversation.
Well, now see, in training or public speaking, there's thing you learn to not talk about 3 things. You learn not to talk about religion, you learn not to talk about politics, and you learn not to talk about Frank's wife. Chuckle, 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 chuckle. He looks up. Frank. Okay, where are we at? You as a business owner. Well, maybe this will work. There we go. Self-management begins with self-knowledge. And if you look on lesson 1, page 2 in your book, there's a couple of questions. It means examining and questioning your talents, assumptions, beliefs, and values to, number 1, make assessments of your strengths and weaknesses. I had polio when I was a kid. So I've had a lot of surgeries, and I tend to limp when I walk. That's a strength. I've learned to use that as a strength in my business because when I work the senior market, I have a cane that I use. In fact, you'll probably see the cane over the next 3 days. And I tend to limp it a little more when I go up to the door. Now, and when I was in Tennessee, I would take new agents out in the wintertime, and I had a sign-up sheet, and he would sign up to go work with me. I left the office at 9 o'clock. That means if you showed up at 9 o'clock, I'm already getting on the freeway. In fact, my wife would call me and say, Barbara's here. She said she was supposed to work with you. Yeah, that's true. Well, she's here. Okay, well, what time was she supposed to work with me? 9 o'clock. Well, see, it's 9 o'clock, and I'm getting on the freeway. I don't leave at 9 o'clock. I said I'm going to be at work at 9 o'clock. That means I'm already gone. So new agents would, so if you wanted to work with me, what time would you show up?
8.
There you go. Give it up. Yeah. Because whose money are we talking about?
Yours?
Yeah, my money. Yeah, and I get mean when you mess with my green. So I leave on time. So I take new agents out in the field. It'd be wintertime, 0 degrees, -10 wind chill factor, 12 inches of snow. And an agent would show up with an overcoat on, gloves, scarf, ear muffins. And I'd look at him and think, okay, so you don't want to get in a house? See, if I went to a senior's home dressed exactly like I'm dressed right now, and it was 0-degree weather, and the senior opened the door and saw me standing there in 0-degree weather with this
I
on.
think you're freezing, they will open the door like
Oh, isn't that funny how that works? Son, you better get in here. You're going to catch your death coat. Well, if you insist, I'll come limping in. Funny how that works. See, so I use that as my strength. So part of it is examining what your strengths and weaknesses are. My suggestion is that you focus on your strength. Well, I want to learn how to do the walk and talk. Okay, well, what are you more comfortable on? The phone. Well, maybe you should focus on the phone, become proficient at that, be able to make your house payment and car payment using that, and then increase your skill set. Does that make sense? So I would encourage you to focus on what strengths you bring to the table. Develop your positive qualities. We all have things that other people may perceive as a negative. We have things about ourselves we perceive as a negative. And the worst thing we can do is compare ourselves, in my opinion, to other people. In fact, sometimes I don't think that we do a good job when we put on meetings by putting the top salesperson up there in front of the room. I mean, the truth is, if I've got a guy in front of the room talking to my agents who's been here for 30 years and he's talking about how to do referrals, is he doing anything special? Do you think if you've been in the business 30 years, you should know how to get referrals? See, a lot of times what they do is they talk about a high level of what they do, but they don't give specific techniques. So as a new agent, I'm sitting there thinking, well, that's great and it's motivating, but I don't walk back with those 3 bullet points that tell me what I can do. Does that make sense? So you want to develop your positive qualities. What things do you bring to the table? It's not a matter of that another agent in the office is more successful or better at something than you. It's what do you do that you can increase your skill set on? Or what skill set are you able to learn to increase your effectiveness? Does that make sense? And you all bring things. We demonstrated with Dave. He already knows how to prospect. He already knows how to make phone calls, right? You already know how to do direct mail because you sent your resume out. You already know how to get the interview because you got interviewed. And you know how to elicit a purchase, right? Because they bought you. Does that make sense? And you want to control your weak areas. There's things that I'm not great at. And I acknowledge that up front. In fact, I'll kind of use this as a segue to objections. One of the things you can do to increase your effectiveness in handling objections, I would disagree with the concept of overcoming objections, and I'll tell you why later, but one of the concepts of learning how to handle objections is to acknowledge what the objections are. And the philosophy, the numbers I would give you, and I'm a numbers person, the numbers I would give you is if you get the same objection 2 times out of 5 presentations, when should you handle the objection?
Up front.
Yeah, give it up, man. At the beginning of your sales presentation. So if you twice out of 5 presentations, they said, I want to think about it, then I would handle it up front. So for example, what I would do up front to build the commitment and get rid of that objection that I've gotten 2 out of how many times? 5 times, is I'd say, Anthony, Linda, I appreciate you letting me come out here today. I want to take a couple minutes to talk to you a little bit about what I see my responsibility is. What I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to kind of explain to you what the process is. Does that make sense? So I want you to know that I'm a salesman and I get paid by commission, but you know that, right? See, I like getting that dirty little secret out on the table. So I tell you, I'm a salesman, I get paid by commission, but you know that, right? So here's what I see my job is. My job is to kind of ask you some questions, get an idea on how you've accessed health care. A couple things you like about your existing plan, a couple things you don't like about it, one thing you like to change about it. And then kind of get an idea, when you're thinking about money, I know you already pay a premium, but I don't really care about that right now, but when you're thinking about money and how much you want to set aside to pay for your health care expenses, about, just round figures, about how much money a month are you talking about? 700, but not more than. See how we got that window there? Just by saying not more than and using the body language, do your head and your shoulder like that, you get a little bit of a window. So if I do my job properly and I can help you eliminate these 2 things, help you get this one thing, make sure your plan covers and do it at no more than that $700 figure right in that ballpark, then if I understand you correctly, you'd be interested in moving forward and see if you qualify to apply, right? So the only thing I would ask you, if I do my job properly, is I would just ask you at the end of it, if you would just give me either yes or no. You see, at $3.67 a gallon for gas, I can't afford to keep coming back. I won't be like most salesmen and call you and nagging you and bugging you. In fact, one of the reasons why we had a little difficulty picking a time is because I'm very busy and I have a lot of clients. So if your answer is yes, I'll do everything I can to get the information necessary for the underwriter to make a final decision and get your policy issued. If the answer is no, I'll thank you for your time and I won't bother you anymore. And you'd expect that, right? Can we agree on that?
Sounds fair.
And then I shake your hand. Now, what did I just gain?
confidence.
Did I get the commitment up front?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what did I build in for the objection? Did we already handle I want to think about it? Because we fast forward an hour later, and they say, I want to think about it. I can come back and say, isn't that funny how that works? So I said, well, Linda, I'm a little bit confused. You remember when we first started talking, I sat down and told you I'm a salesman, I get paid by commission? Now what's funny about doing that is one or the other, usually the husband or wife will look at each other because they know they just got what? So they know they just got caught. Yeah, but here's the truth of the matter. The reason I build this in up front is because I am a highly trained licensed professional. If you're lucky enough to have Lloyd Lofton come out to your house and you make a final decision that this is the product that's going to help solve your problems, you have received the best agent there is. And my time is of value. I bring value to the table. And if I've done my job properly, do you have a right to be paid? Then you have a right to ask for the business. But it's kind of like that doctor. If the doctor says, well, you can take this medicine, this medicine, this medicine, or this medicine. If you as an agent say, well, you can do this kind of plan, or this kind of plan, and this option, and this option, or this option, or this option, then what are you asking them to do?
Think about it.
Think about it, right? So why are you surprised at the end when they say, I want to
Think about it.
think about it? If you're the doctor, if you're the highly trained licensed professional, then what do you want to do?
Tell them exactly
You want
what
to
they need.
prescribe the solution. Based on the information you've given me, this is a plan I feel like does meet your needs. See how that works? So we want to treat ourselves as a highly trained licensed professional. So you want to control your weak areas. There's things that I'm not good at in the presentation. I'm good, really good at getting in the door. I am a good closer. I'm not that great at the actual presentation. I'm good at the qualification. I'm great at getting a commitment. But there's other agents that are much better at the product presentation than I am. Much better at it. So I control the things that I am good at. That's what I would encourage you to do. Make assessments of your strengths. Develop your positive qualities. And control your weak areas so that your focus is on yeses, not nos. Yes, sir.
What happens if you have trouble getting in the door?
Is this walk and talk or is this phone calls?
Walk and talk.
Okay. And is that the preferred way for you to market
That's the
yourself?
preferred way.
Okay. Well, you guys okay if we talk about this for a second?
Sure.
Do you mind if I ask you what you mean by getting in the door?
Well, I'm going toward the senior market with the medical, Medicare supplements. And, they may be at home or whatever, but, and sometimes, like we were talking earlier, they may not even come to the door. Or, just yesterday, I don't like to say this, but she was a bitch, okay?
Well, let me ask you a question. When do your customers lie to you?
Always.
When they move their lips, right? Isn't it funny how that works? Right, but wait a minute. Now, from a management standpoint, when do agents lie to you?
Always.
When they move their lips, right? I want to succeed in this business. I'm going to work really hard.
But, the minute they hear insurance,
Chuckle, chuckle. Don't get your feelings hurt.
it's kind of like, we got enough, we don't need enough.
So let me see if I understand you correctly. You go to the door. They answer the door.
Yeah.
Assuming they answer the door. You mention insurance and it turns them off.
The minute you say, you'll say, I'm with American Republic Insurance.
Okay. Can I analogize that to referrals?
What's that?
Can I analogize that
Yeah.
to referrals? What industry were you in before you got in insurance?
The ag industry,
The ag industry.
not the ad industry.
The ag. You're right. You're one of those pork farmers, right? Can't have your meeting because the pigs are coming to town. Well, damn, didn't know you meant my ex-wife. Chuckle, chuckle.
That was
Just
that
having fun. Okay, so how many years were you in the ag business?
About 30.
During those 30 years, how many times did your family or friends call you up and say, John, I need to buy health insurance. Who can I buy it from?
A couple times I can remember.
So would you build your career in the insurance business over those 2 times over the next 30 years in the insurance business?
No.
Oh, okay. Now, how many times, what industry were you in?
I've been mostly clothing.
Clothing, all right. How many times did family or friends in the clothing, when all those years you were in the clothing business, call you up and say, hey, Fred, I want to buy health insurance. Who can I buy it from? How many times did that happen to you?
Never.
Now, how do you guys ask for referrals?
I asked you to say, who do you know that may need some help?
Well, I'm just curious, okay? Because everybody says that.
Yeah.
Who do you know? Now, I just asked you, in 30 years in the ag business, twice somebody says, who can I buy health insurance with? And we build our business by asking customers questions that in our own personal life, we never had it happen. You get the analogy? Did anyone ever call you up and say, hey, who can I buy health insurance from? But yet we're sitting in front of someone saying, who do you know that would be interested in health insurance? And usually their answer is what? Don't know anybody. See how that concept works? So we did the slides up here. There was a survey done, and people said these are the things they need in order to have the American dream. Was anywhere on there, did it mention insurance? Anywhere on there, did it mention a product? Then what are you talking about at the door?
Insurance.
Ah, okay. So is there a connection there? What could you say differently at the door?
Well, you know, I'd start talking about something that they have, or, you know, a good example was just the other day, a guy had a 68 Chevy up in front that I really liked. I mean,
Yeah.
it was immaculate condition. I started talking about it, and I heard the whole rendition on that 68 Chevy.
And then what ended up happening?
Ended up, I closed the sale.
Oh, give me that, dude. Check it out. So, what would your advice be to him, guys? David, what would your advice be to him about getting in the door?
Find common ground.
Find common ground. Knocking on doors, doing the walk and talk is not about, in my experience, I'm not saying it's not true, but it's not about making a sale. It's about building a relationship. And if someone says, give you an example. This may apply more to the ladies than the guys, but this is a school. Everybody see that? This is the driveway. This is the street, okay? Everybody with me? Okay. I call Christy, or I call Mary, and your kid gets out of school at 3 p.m., and I call at 2:45. Now let me ask you a question. Those of you who know the guys, you might know the answer too. Your kid gets out of school at 3 p.m. They're in elementary school. If I get to the school at 5 minutes to 3, where will I park?
Right out front.
Right out here, right? If I get to the school at 4:45,